Hello and welcome back to Time to Change. Dr. George Ackerman is with TogetherForSharon.com, and he is telling about what he is doing to remember his mom and to get awareness out for Parkinson's disease. So the very first thing, hey, thanks for being here, Dr. George Ackerman. I really appreciate it. Tell us, what is Parkinson's disease?
Yeah, first I want to thank you and your audience for this time. It means a lot to me and my family and so many out there who need more awareness to really understand Parkinson's and then to fight it and end it forever. Unfortunately, Parkinson's disease is one of the fastest growing neurodegenerative diseases in the world. About approximately 1 million people in the U.S. have it or have been diagnosed, and about 10 million out of the U.S. It also obviously affects not just those diagnosed, but also family members. And that's where I unfortunately come in a way. But fortunately, it's brought, I try to take some of the negative and bring to the positive. And being with you today, again, means a lot to me. But my mother unfortunately passed on 1/1/2020 due to Parkinson's disease. And she had it for about 15 years, but I didn't become her caregiver till the last 4 when it took over. The beginning of Parkinson's, she didn't really have it, or at least she had it, but didn't really share the news with us. I don't know if she didn't want to be a burden or didn't really understand, 20 years ago what it really was. So for the first few years, it was just some stiffness in her left arm, but she was still able to live independently and, drive, get groceries, see her friends. But unfortunately, something sped it up. We're not sure what. We think she went for a program, almost like a trial for people with Parkinson's and university. And we think they might have changed her, drastically changed her medications. And that night, had to rush over at 4 a.m. and she was in the middle of the street moving her furniture out because she thought someone was going to harm her. And that's really where the journey, my journey as caregiver, took over full force. And but again, just to tell you a little bit more, for the viewers who aren't aware, Parkinson's is a debilitating disease. It affects the brain, also physical and mentally affects the individual, and then also the caregivers who are caring for them. But my mother, yeah.
I was just going to say that, what I was reading about it, and we talked off camera about how Michael J. Fox has brought so much attention to this and the things that he's done recently. But the one thing that I didn't realize is how subtle some of the beginning is, like you described with your mom and her arm, or a trembling in your hand. There's very subtle things that it starts with, and if you're not aware of it, and you're not looking to take care of it, or you're hiding it because you don't want to be a burden, it can grow. So let's dive into that a little bit more, and how you first found out, or how your mom first found out and really got that diagnosis, and then what happened from there.
Sure, yeah. I was told by my father, because he's a medical doctor in New York, we're in Florida, that he said that he had her diagnosed earlier, about, again, 15 years before she passed. And they were trying things. I didn't get much involved because, again, I wasn't even aware. I heard the word Parkinson, but it didn't really, we were told by many doctors that Parkinson's, you live with Parkinson's, you don't die from it. And the other issue that's very complicated with Parkinson's is every person is treated differently, unfortunately. So what happens with Mr. Michael J. Fox? He has the external tremors. Some individuals, like my mother, had more internal, so you don't see it. Then the individual who's diagnosed thinks you don't believe them. So it becomes very frustrating for everybody. She also had something called dystonia, where the toes curl, so your toes are uncontrollable. She also had dyskinesia. That's rigidity also. And then after the 4 years when I took over, like everything just kind of slowly went downhill. She went from being able to walk many miles to the cane for 2 years, and then from the cane to the walker, then from the walker to the wheelchair, and finally bedbound. And again, no one can really understand why it progressed so quickly. They do say today that exercise, things like that of that nature, might decrease the speed of the disease, but again, at some point, it's too late, unfortunately, for that. But back to Mr. Michael J. Fox, I had the honor a few weeks ago to meet him, and it was both incredible experience, but also in the same vein, tough, because I saw what it was doing to him. And then I don't know if you noticed or your viewers a few weeks ago, he actually won some award and they had to have him come out in a wheelchair, which I've never seen before, at least
Yeah.
for him. And he's a hero to me and many because he could have done what you said and not spoke up and kind of just kept it quiet. There are a lot of people, still celebrities, that are doing that. Oddly enough, it's sad, but I actually reached out to Richard Lewis's agent literally a month ago. And he said he wasn't at the moment taking calls, but then I found out the other day he passed away due to Parkinson's. So I don't know if many of you must know, he's a famous comedian or was. So, it's just affecting everyone now. I'm finding out after getting into advocacy for a few years that, we might not have it. Possibly I could get it. We don't know if it's genetic or not. But people now, their neighbors are getting it. They're, the mailman, the, friend of a friend. And unfortunately, it's becoming bigger and bigger, which is one of the things we don't ever want to have happen.
But is there anything now that is treatment based that seems to be gaining ground and potentially looks good on the horizon for stopping some of this?
Yeah, they have, the normal medication to help with uncontrollable movement. So carbidopa, levodopa. Again, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a PhD more in law enforcement, criminal justice. So I just talk about my experiences. I always recommend to see your local, movement specialist, professional doctor. But there was a groundbreaking evidence research done last year through the Michael J. Fox Foundation, where they found a biomarker. And what that is again, I'm not 100% on it, but you can definitely type in the word biomarker, it'll come up. But they can put a needle in the spine, which doesn't sound pleasant, but they might be able to determine if someone has Parkinson's or not. Right now, there's no actual test for Parkinson's. What they do is they test for other diseases, and then if they narrow it down, then it's Parkinson's. So it's not really the most effective. And also, if you're not diagnosed properly or misdiagnosed or not diagnosed in time, that leads to some further complications because you don't want, the wrong medications for Parkinson's if you don't have Parkinson's, or vice versa. Some people have signs of Parkinson's, but it's called Parkinsonians, which is not Parkinson's. It's just symptoms of other diseases. So this gets very,
Oh, wow.
it gets very complicated. With my mother's scenario, again, I'm not sure. Maybe she didn't know how bad it was. Maybe she was not diagnosed early enough, or again, she might have been ashamed, which is sad. But many people, they lose their careers. I have someone I'm friendly with now. He had to give up being a truck driver, his passion he loved, because of Parkinson's, because at some point you can't drive anymore.
Talk about what you have learned from your advocacy efforts and what you're trying to accomplish with Together for Sharon.
Sure. I actually started it just to, in a way to remember my mother and her journey, because I feel she was robbed of 15 or even more years of her life. And then an additional to me, 15 after, because I feel, and I could be wrong, that you should be in 2024 living to 85 or who knows, even longer. And she just was robbed of that. Her favorite time, by the way, was sitting in the back with her 3 grandchildren blowing bubbles on Sundays. And I walk by it Sunday mornings and don't see it, and it breaks my heart. But the reason I started it was really just to remember her. I thought maybe 5 people would see it. It was now, if you look at the website, there's a little teeny counter somewhere hidden, and we've had over 35,000, I think, at this point. I've been doing it for 4 years. I really didn't push it or get really involved until really a year or two ago, when I thought about it. And I was like to myself, it's not just about my mother and my journey anymore. It's about everybody. And I had the honor, because of social media and because we're lucky we have virtual, which I can speak to incredible people like you and your audience. Thank you again for that. But I was able to reach people around the world, and I was shocked because I thought it was just, the U.S., because we live in our, the United States. I'm like, don't really have much access to other countries. And then I started doing research, found an organization, and they meet every 2 years, called the World Parkinson's Congress. And it's where all the people, Parkinson's community, meet just every 2 to 3 years around the world. Last one I couldn't make. I had my own major back surgeries, but I was able to kind of, meet people online, and I was able to do my own work. I interviewed about 600 people in the last year, kind of cutting back because it's not easy, but I did all free. I interviewed them free, and we hosted on the website completely free. And it costs a lot for me, but it's, we're not in this for that. And so what I was able to learn is there's so many people I've interviewed people from Africa to England to France to Spain to UK, Australia, Iceland, Nova Scotia, like places you wouldn't even dream, Hawaii recently. And it represents people who have Parkinson's, the organizations advocating for a cure, and family members, and just so many incredible people out there. That's what inspired me really to push forward, push harder. If you follow me, somehow I have every social media, but I do want to reiterate that this is just me. I'm just a son. My mother was my best friend. I miss her every day. Even some of these talks are not easy to get through. I try to look tough. I'm 200 pounds, 6'2" in law enforcement, but it's not easy to talk about this all the time. But I feel every morning I wake up, I get re-energized seeing those other stories and journeys. And I always say the one journey I'm not aware of is the one that truly breaks my heart.
Oh, well, I know that our viewers are certainly going to be drawn to what you're doing. Is there a way for people to support you through the website?
Yeah, this nice thing, and I could be wrong because again, it's your show, but I want to I always make this point that we don't accept money, which is shocking, and I don't want anything except the people to know that they're not alone. So I know we've done like walks for Parkinson's, like with big organizations. We'll have a little table, we pass out these bands, in my mother's memory for free. But and both sides are a pharmaceutical company selling a lot. So sometimes the people are actually timid, scared because they think we're selling them, and they come up and they start crying and realize what we're doing. But it's sad, in 2024 again, that you have to tell people, number one, again, I don't want anything. Number two, I do want you to know that you're not alone. And number three, we just want a cure, because I don't want other people who have now become my friends and family. It's a great community, the Parkinsons. They open their arms for me. And that's really the most important thing. And obviously, before we go, I have a little statement I always say, but
Yeah, absolutely. Go right ahead.
I just want everyone to know that we love you. This goes to you too. We support you and we care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I will advocate for you, and together our voices are so much stronger. And I always say I'm just getting started, because even though, again, I've been doing it for a short time, like I said, every morning I wake up. If you go to TogetherForSharon.com, click interviews, you'll see just other individual stories, their journeys, and it really inspires me to keep going. But the website, again, is really just resources that I wish I had and knew about when I was going through the struggle as a caregiver to my mother. I mean, there's so much stuff out there, and even back then there wasn't much, but now there is. It's just all over the place. So now we bring it in one place, completely free. The interviews are free, everything. I'm actually excited because in a month I'm hoping for Parkinson's Awareness Month. It's April, releasing my first book ever. And it's, again, I can't say much, but it's a journey of my mother and mine, and then from caregiver to advocate. And again, I always say I won't stop fighting until we find a cure, even though some days I'm really burnt out. Family doesn't see me, and it's draining. It's not easy because, I feel like there's lives, which there are, waiting every day, because more people are getting this disease, more people are tragically suffering. I mean, it destroys lives, and I think we can change it. And this is just the first step. So I want to thank you and your audience again, that this conversation cannot end. We didn't have a lot of time to really touch on a few last things, but there's something that was historic that just passed. It's called the National Plan to End Parkinson's Disease. It passed the U.S. Congress December 2023. And this is the first legislator, shockingly, that will ever address anything in the U.S. history for Parkinson's patients and advocates and caregivers. And it's going to the Senate. So you and your audience, please reach out to your senators and
Absolutely.
tell them, please support the bill. Again, I get nothing from it except my dream one day is that TogetherForSharon.com ends. And obviously I'll keep it up, but I don't want to have to do this because I don't want lives to be lost like my mother's due to Parkinson's disease.